Hi, everybody. Welcome to Why Eagles Why, our weekly look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman. Happy to be with you again. You know how we do this? We set it up in 4 quarters plus the overtime. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. All right, as we break the huddle for the first quarter, Pete, the Eagles coming off a resounding triumph against the Tennessee Titans. They go to 11-1. What was your take coming out of that game?
Just how dominant they were on both sides of the ball, really. Everybody said they were worried about Derrick Henry. He didn't do anything. We basically stacked the box and dared them to pass deep, and they couldn't do it. So our secondary looked good. We had their wide receivers locked up the whole game. And then our offense basically did whatever they wanted to, passing the ball. Our passing game was great. A.J. Brown came in and got his revenge. They called back 1 touchdown, so he scored another one right after that. So he had 2 touchdowns, and he had a great game, which we all kind of thought that he would come out. Sirianni usually likes to play into those kind of situations, so we always to give him that kind of revenge game, which he did. I just think it shows just another tip to the hat of Jalen Hurts. Just basically, they won a whole different way. People said they couldn't. If you make Jalen Hurts throw the ball, they're not going to win. But that's what he did. He threw the ball. I mean, we didn't really have many rushing yards. I think Miles Sanders had 25 yards rushing, and besides that, Jalen Hurts only ran the ball for 12 yards. So, yeah, they gave the ball to Jalen Hurts. They let him air it out, and they totally dominated a team that was supposed to be the toughest team in the NFL, and they did not make it tough for the Eagles. And I just think it goes to show how dominant the Eagles really are in the NFL.
Yeah, the Titans had covered 8 straight weeks. They were the hottest team in the NFL until the week before against the Cincinnati Bengals, a very good team that had gone into Philadelphia. I'm amazed at the touch that Jalen Hurts is putting on his passes this year. And Bill, talking about Jalen Hurts, that leads us into a very captivating Gelman's Gold.
Yes, it's another. I should be a history teacher on this. I keep going back and looking at Eagles history. I figured 360 plus rushing yards in one game and over 350 passing yards in another game. I figured it had to be some sort of NFL node. Sure enough, it is. Believe it or not, guys, the Eagles are the first NFL team since the 1987 Raiders. Takes us back to the Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson days. To rush for 350 plus yards in one game, and then the following week throw for over 350 passing yards. So they had 363 rushing yards against the Green Bay Packers and 386 passing yards against the Titans.
Wow.
Raiders, just by comparison, the Raiders were 356 rushing yards and 360 passing yards. So it just shows you how deep and talented this team is. I was looking down the box score. You had 9 different players catch balls. You had their top 2 wide receivers had at least 1 touchdown, and they both had 100-yard games. And it goes to show you that Nick Sirianni and the offensive coaching staff, they're adjusting to their opponent. Against Green Bay, they focused on the run with a very limited passing game. This week, they went all in the passing game. And so it's nice to see this late in the season, the Eagles adjusting to the opponent's strengths and weaknesses.
Well, that is a great Gelman's Gold. Do you think through the years of the Air Coryells and the Dan Marino days and teams that could really rack it up in the passing yards, but you would never think they could then come back a different week and do so much on the ground game? We'll talk a little bit more about that, about whether the Eagles should be getting more respect. But to wrap up this first quarter, a great effort by the Eagles against the Titans, and more to look forward to in our second quarter. Second quarter of Why Eagles Why. The Eagles are the best team in football. But does everybody know that outside of Philadelphia? And the consensus, Pete, seems to be no. So many people jumping on another team's bandwagon and a team you don't particularly like.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. See, the thing is, Dallas Cowboys have a very insecure fan base. They need that constant like pat on the head, like you guys are still good, don't worry. They need that reassurance, like constantly. If you go on Twitter, it's just Cowboy fans talking to other Cowboy fans, saying like, trying to talk up how good they really are, which they're nothing special. I mean, this team is not that good compared to. I don't even think they're a top 5 team. But anytime the national media and the national fan base can jump on that bandwagon, they're going to. Not only does it give the fans a boost, it gives the ratings a boost. And then when they do fail, which they ultimately will do, which they've done, then the ESPN and the national media can be like, oh my God, can you believe it? They choked again. And they can make a big story about it and then blah, blah, blah. So I'm not worried about it. They do this all the time with the national fan base. They constantly try to push this Cowboys, America's team narrative, and it's just not working. It never has worked. Maybe in the 90s, most of these fans weren't even alive when they were quote unquote America's team. So I'm just going to let them have that. I'll let them have the little pat on the head. You guys, maybe there's next year a participation trophy. They are the king of participation trophies, the Cowboys and the Cockroaches. And we'll give them that participation trophy, and we'll take the Super Bowl trophy at the end of the season.
One of these days, if you go into your favorite bookstore and you see a book called The Cockroach Chronicles, look and see if Pete Amato wrote it. And the other part of this is that for the bettors, that's always great news because you can get a deal on the Eagles that you would not normally have because they're under the radar in terms of the hype. And Bill, you've taken a deeper dive into exactly how disrespected the Eagles have been in the national media. And what have you come up with?
Well, before I answer that, Dave, I have to follow up on Pete's point here. The way I look at the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, you look at it like a Hollywood overhyped movie. Like every year there's like when the summer blockbusters, they start playing the trailers during the Super Bowl. And the movie looks so good from the trailer, ends up being the biggest dud and loses tons of money. Dallas Cowboys make tons of money, but they never live up to the hype. So this is just like the Hollywood version of a team not living up to expectations, and they haven't for a long time. But the reality of this stupid ESPN poll, because that's quite frankly what it is it's pretty much it's like baseball analytics. They put the whole thing in a computer, and it's based on the results. So this is from a published article I found to explain this stupid poll, because that's all it is. ESPN says its FPI projected results are based on 10,000 simulations of the rest of the season using results to date and the remaining schedule. Well, of course, the Cowboys' remaining schedule is going to help their cause. They have a cupcake schedule. They're playing the Houston Texans this week, who has one stinking win. Come on now.
Yeah.
It's a ratings ploy.
Yes.
They have baked that in, and they're a 17-point favorite. But I mean, not only will Philadelphia fans recoil at that, but they can take advantage of looking at that and say, well, maybe where can I make money from this? Go, hey, how about those cockroaches, and I'll make some money over here. Well, we're going to take a further look at some projections like the Eagles Giants and the Eagles' 3-game road trip coming up in the third quarter. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. And now NFC East teams facing each other, the Birds going up to play the New York Giants. Pete, last week you told us you expressed some doubts about the Giants as maybe the team that might get nosed out in this, and they suffered an unfortunate tie against the Washington Commanders at home last week, missing by 1 yard, a game-winning field goal. Do you still feel now after that? I guess you have that same feeling about the Giants and their tough schedule going forward?
Yeah, I do. I just think I said the Eagles and the Cowboys would kind of separate themselves, and that would begin last week because of the difficulty of the Giants' schedule. I think they're just like I wouldn't even say a fraud team. I mean, their quarterback is just not good enough. I mean, he just if you just watch him play the game, I mean, a lot of the deep balls are usually just like 50-50 balls. He just kind of throws up and they kind of get lucky. They have Saquon Barkley that they lean on, but if they need to pass the ball there, they just have no shot. And you saw that versus the Commanders. The Commanders gave them every opportunity to move downfield, and he couldn't do it. That Jones could not move downfield. He's just not a good quarterback. And if that team wants to kind of be that playoff team, they're going to have to get another quarterback. So, yeah, I believe that the Giants kind of gave all that they could this season. I think that they're going to keep separating themselves from the pack. And I think it's just going to be an Eagles, Dallas, NFC East. Those two teams are the only two teams I'm really worried about in this division right now.
And to your point, the Giants are one win away from clearing their expected win total this year at the book. So they've overachieved already, and they could slink back to what was expected of them. And now, Bill, as the Eagles start a 3-game road stretch here against the Giants, 7 points on the road, that's a lot of respect given to this team. And it seems that they've always got a big number to cover when they go on the road. And this week looks like it's no exception.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have been playing with big numbers all season. And you know, some weeks like last week, they make the numbers seem like nothing. But I agree with Pete, and you know, I think the Giants are a team like that other team in New York, the Jets, who have exceeded expectations this season. They're just not ready for the upper tier of the conference, and the Giants really have a tough road. This starts a really tough road for the Giants. You know, you have bookend games against the Eagles. The last game's probably not going to matter. Then they play Washington on Sunday Night Football. That game got flexed next week. And this is after the two teams tied, so they have to break the tie. Then you have Minnesota, who's the second best team in the NFC, and Indianapolis, who has been playing better. So there's no guaranteed. I mean, there's never a guaranteed win, but there's no game in there that says, oh, the Giants definitely have that. They have a tough road ahead, and we're going to get to really see now if the Giants have what it takes to remain in the NFC playoff picture. I think they could fall back. I think you got to keep an eye on Seattle's going to move up. I don't think Seattle's going to be on the outside looking in. And then you have the interesting thing with the what happened with the 49ers. We've been hyping up the 49ers, and now Jimmy Garoppolo is out for the season with a broken foot. So suddenly the team that was right behind the Eagles in the NFC playoff picture. So we have that late season intrigue, but the asterisk with the Eagles Giants, besides the fact that the Eagles haven't lost the road game this year, this is not going to be the first week they do it. These Eagles Giants games, something always goes wrong. I don't know. Sometimes it's for the better. Sometimes it's, I can't believe that just happened. And, you know, after how they played Washington a few weeks ago, I'm concerned that something ugly will happen in this game.
Well, they did lose to the Giants up there last year, and you're waiting.
I'm not
still waiting for Jalen Reagor to bring that ball in.
I'm not concerned about
he's a member of
I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned. Like I said, this team, like Heineke's better than Jones. I think.
I agree with you.
If anything, they have a good running game, but the running game, is it explosive? We'll see. I mean, but yeah, you're right. Any NFC game is. You never know, because the Eagles sometimes they might just not show up. But I just think they let a lot of the air out of them with that Washington game. If you watch that, I mean, I had a parlay on that game, so I was watching it pretty closely. And they just had every opportunity to win that game, and they just couldn't do it.
Well, they gave up a touchdown late.
Yeah.
They gave up a touchdown late at home when they had the game in their hands.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
And something we've both talked about, I'm very interested to see if they stack the box and they shut out Barkley up front the way they shut off Derrick Henry. Now, can the Giants beat them through the air? And it doesn't look like they have that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
and there's where it is.
Yeah, that's why.
And these two new guys that the Eagles have, along with Jordan Davis being back. I mean, if the Eagles defense plays half as well as they played last week against Tennessee, because I think Tennessee is a better team, Eagles are not going to have any problem winning this game.
Just continue to be aggressive. Gadden has to continue to be aggressive. He got a little bit more aggressive last game. He got a little bit more, but he's got to keep doing what he's doing.
Well, we saw the Eagles emerge against the Packers to win with the 40 points. We saw them emerge against Tennessee and dominate an excellent ball club. Now, can they do it against the Giants? We're going to see. We're going to take a look around the NFL in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why, and a development around football last week sent Eagles fans down memory lane. You remember this. We'll talk about how Brock Purdy came in for the San Francisco 49ers. Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, number 262. All of a sudden, when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, Purdy came in as the third-string quarterback for the 49ers and led them to a win over the Miami Dolphins, and he looked good doing it. He looked every bit as good as Garoppolo. And Pete, that takes us back to Carson Wentz being injured during the Eagles Super Bowl season. And when Nick Foles came in, what a journey that became for the Eagles and their fans.
Yeah, I think when the backup comes in and everybody's surprised to see how good they are, I think these guys come in with nothing to lose. So they really don't have much pressure on them. They air out the ball. They play with no pressure on their back. They think, I mean, usually when you see in that position of a game, in that position of a season, I know we did. We thought, oh man, I guess this isn't the year, because Carson Wentz was having such a good year, and we could have never even thought. I mean, everybody liked Foles, but he's a career backup guy, and you would have never thought he would have come in and did what he did, especially in the playoffs against Tom Brady. It was unbelievable, an unbelievable story. But yeah, these backups, they have no pressure. So anything they do, if they expect to fail. So if they fail, and then if they do something good, it's a win-win for them. But this guy is no Foles. This is no 2017 Eagles. So I'm not worried about that one bit. Foles has always been that guy that comes in. Even before that, if you look when he came in with the whole, when Mike Vick was here and stuff like that, he just always, anytime he had to come in to replace a guy, he just always looked good. Like he never looked good the entire season, but he would always come in. He had that 7 touchdown game a couple years before that. Yeah, that was a special story. I think that was like a once in a lifetime type thing. A backup quarterback taking on the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't see it happening again, but the 49ers can kind of hope and pray that it could happen again. They could think about the Foles situation. So I don't think they're 100% out of it. They have a good defense. They have a good run game. So we'll see what happens with them.
Now, it's something interesting looking at him. He looked further along than Foles was early because he was comfortable with the 49ers system. Now, Bill, Ron Jaworski, who would certainly know about the quarterback position, told me that what the Eagles did with Foles was they changed their offense to fit him, and that really paid off in the last 2 games of that journey against Minnesota and then in the Super Bowl. When you think of Nick Foles and that run with the Eagles, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like to be the perfect quarterback for that storied season. Because if you look at Nick Foles' career outside of Philadelphia, he really hasn't done anything. He's, I forget where he is now, but he's pretty much he might even be a third-string quarterback. So it's just Colts, like, right? Is he with the Colts? I'm not sure who he's with. I lost track.
He got hurt. I mean, he had
yeah,
a
he
big
was
season then, you know?
Yeah, I know he was in Chicago at one point. So a lot of times with the quarterback, you have to be in the right system with the right players around you, with the right coaching staff who builds a game plan around you. And that's exactly what happened during that Super Bowl season. And no matter what happens the rest of the way, Nick Foles is a quarterback Philadelphia will never forget. I don't know if he'll rank up there with Jalen Hurts by the time Jalen Hurts' career is done. But Nick Foles is move over Ron Jaworski, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick. Nick Foles has secured his spot in Philadelphia football history. He's like the Rocky story of the Philadelphia Eagles, and something none of us will ever forget in terms of what he pulled off in that season. And anybody know what happened to Carson Wentz since he left town? Sorry, I had to take that tape, Pete.
What was it? I think he's been traded a couple times, and he's
a bad team with a bad owner, and then he was traded to another bad team with a bad owner. So,
well, you know what? The Eagles didn't realize that after that surgery, Wentz was not the same. But I'm surprised that Indianapolis thought that he would be the answer. I'm also surprised that Washington thought he would be the answer after all those things that happened from 2 years ago. I mean, when you look back at him, you could see that there was something in terms of his mobility had declined, and that why they kept buying into Carson Wentz, we're not quite sure.
I think because he was so good. I think he was so good that one. He was so good with the Eagles, even the next year, in 2019, I think it was when he basically carried them to the playoffs with a string of backup wide receivers. So I think they kind of looked at that like that's still there. I mean, he still has that ability to do that, but I just think Carson Wentz just can't get out of his own way. I think he seems like he's very frustrating coaching. I feel like he needs to take coaching advice a little better. I feel like that's what seems to be said about him, and that's like the main issue right now. He needs to change his game after that injury, and I don't think he ever tried to do that.
No, and I think that Bill, when I look at him during the Super Bowl season, he got rid of the ball quickly with authority, knew where he wanted to go with it, and in the season since, a lot more indecision with him
mentally and physically. He was never the same. Yeah,
what to do, and I think it's a great topic because quarterback situations in the NFL is next man up, and you have to be ready. You have to be, having taken the reps and everything like that. So we'll see how this topic plays out. Brock Purdy, he's playing against Tom Brady this week. So we're going to know a lot more. I thought he played a great game and comfortable against a good Miami team. So we'll see what that happens. But, it just brought back the Nick Foles memories for us when we saw him do that. When we come back to Why Eagles Why, our overtime segment. It's overtime on Why Eagles Why. Hey, some personal thoughts aside, we've got news to report just breaking. Lamar Jackson looks like he'll miss the game for the Baltimore Orioles. So Hot Rod Hundley, who we talked about we're going to talk about in the Next Man Up segment, is now going to guide the Ravens. He led them to a win last week. Pete, what about you? You've got news to report too.
The Titans are in first place in the AFC South. They have a 3-game lead over the Colts and Jaguars, but they just fired their GM, John Robinson, which is kind of funny. It comes right after the game. A.J. Brown totally torched them. So even if they lose that game and A.J. Brown doesn't have a good game, does he still get fired? Probably not. So it's a pretty emotional response by this owner. I mean, it's kind of an embarrassing response. I mean, the guy, they're having a good year and he gets fired because I'm guessing because of the whole A.J. Brown thing. Like, look at it. We could have still had him. Like it's kind of Bush League in my opinion, I think. But yeah, it's very surprising. It's laughable though. But that brings me to my Pete's pick for this week. The Titans are actually a 4-point favorite in Tennessee against the Jaguars. those games are usually close, but I think the Titans are a little bit angry. I think they're going to be playing angry. I will give up the 4 points for the Jags. I think the Jags know that their season's over. So I'm going to take the Titans -4 over the Jaguars for Pete's pick for this week.
All right. So the Eagles not only put a thumping on the Titans, they are responsible for a GM being fired. And Bill, what are your personal thoughts here in overtime?
Eagles-Giants games get very competitive, interested in the Gelman household. You know why? Because there's someone upstairs above where we're recording right now who's a Giants fan. And it doesn't matter if the Eagles have a better record or if the Eagles win a regular season game. Because you know what I always have to hear, guys? How many Super Bowls have the Eagles won? Because she always throws the 4 Super Bowl rings in my face. So hoping that this is the next leg of getting back to that Super Bowl, getting that second Super Bowl ring. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I just don't want to have to deal with other family members rubbing in Eagles lost to the Giants. So there might be some trash talking in this house on Sunday.
Yeah,
there may be a mediator in the Gelman household. Of course, Bill, you've always got Herman Edwards and Deshaun Watson. So when it comes to the Meadowlands, especially, and all types of things. Hey, it's great to see my friends again, Bill Gelman and Pete Amato. We thank you for joining us. Please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. For Pete and for Bill, this is Dave Bontempo saying thanks for joining us on Why Eagles Why, and we'll catch you next time.